So Red Hood.
This is what Job figures out in the midst of his suffering in the book of Job, because Job is tortured terribly by God, who makes a bet with Satan himself.
Mr. Speaker, before the election, this Prime Minister said he would lower energy bills by £300. Since he took office, they've gone up by £149.
If you feel like you're entering the Twilight Zone, you better strap in tight, because it's going to be a bumpy, bumpy ride!
Welcome to the Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. The show that not only dives deep into real-world issues, but also brings it closer to home, helping you master the internal world of your mind and the external world of your home and environment. This is a show you can't afford to miss. So, welcome one, welcome all to Mind, Body, and Soul with your host, Scottish artist, author, and mental health mentor, John Morris.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul podcast. It is live, it is Thursday, it's 4:30, and we are ready to rock and roll. The last show before Christmas 2024, and I am delighted to be here with you. It has been an absolutely phenomenal year. It's been a phenomenal week. It's been a phenomenal season in YouTube, and I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us each and every week, whether it's live or whether it's on the replay. Guys, we love you so much, because at the end of the day, because of you, we have been able to start growing Mind, Body, and Soul once again from the ashes, which is what the little phoenix, which you can't see down the little bottom corner, is all about. But enough of that. Today, we are talking about despondent, we are talking about desperate and tired of life. We got a lot to talk about in today's episode, because we are going to be talking about the book of Job. Jordan Peterson has released a phenomenal video about that we're going to look into a little clip. We are also going to be looking at the character in the DC world of the Joker, and we are going to be looking at dear old Keir Starmer and British politics and what he's been up to this past week. How all three of these things tie in, you will never ever guess, but they do. And first of all, we are going to talk about Keir Starmer. Let's take a look at a little clip right now that is going to set the tone for today's video. I'll see you in a moment.
Mr. Speaker, before the election, this Prime Minister said he would lower energy bills by £300. Since he took office, they've gone up by £149. He said he would protect the winter fuel payment, but now he's in power, he stripped it off our pensioners. And he said he lined up for many photos with waspy women, saying he'd have their backs, and he's just betrayed them in the most scandalous way possible. This is now the defining characteristic of this one-trick phony Prime Minister who says one thing and does another. In Scotland, the SNP are 16 points ahead in the polls. Does he understand? Does he understand why the people of these islands, especially those of us in Scotland, treat him with such contempt?
Well, that was rather straight and to the point, wasn't it? Yes, Scottish people are known across the lands for being really passionate and really, really to the point, shall we say. And it's very, very true. So you heard there, if you didn't pick up the details, Keir Starmer promised that he would return winter fuel payments to the old years, and he didn't. And basically now there are a number of people that we're actually working with personally who are freezing cold this winter, who have no money to put their heating on because your pension only covers so much. And essentially, the world has changed for them. Now, we know that it's really important now to get involved with investment, to start making as much money as you can, to get involved with pensions, to get a private pension, because government is only going to pay a small amount. And the problem is, when you rely on the government, as so many people have done, and so many people could do 30, 40, 50 years ago, you have the rug pulled from underneath your feet and boom, you are done, dusted, and you have literally nothing, and you don't have a pot to piddle in. Obviously, there's more strong ways to say that, but I'll keep it PG and PG for our audience here. But it's very much true, and it is absolutely appalling to see that people that have served their country for so long, people that have helped, people that actually fought in wars, people that literally have served this country and built it back up from the ashes, are now facing a Christmas essentially where they can't put up their Christmas tree, they can't put up their decorations or anything like that because there's nobody to pay to actually fuel. What we have found here, so since Starmer has taken on leadership, if you can call it that, of the United Kingdom, our mortgage has gone up by about £200-300 a month. Our payments for tax have gone up considerably. The energy prices have gone up considerably, and it gets to the point it's like, okay, thankfully we're in a position where we look and we say, okay, we need to make more money, we need to take more business, we need to start pulling on this and this. Perhaps we need to start selling certain things going off. But for people that have never been in that entrepreneurial mindset and are now looking at a Christmas that is freezing cold and miserable, my heart absolutely goes out to you, because I remember it was only about 10 years ago that I was in that position where I didn't have a pot to piddle in, where it was terrifying, the thought of how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But the problem with all of this is, as Mr. Starmer needs to realize, and we are going to explore this from a psychological point of view as well, but I think it's really important to set the scene because I know there are a lot of angry people that are going to be watching this show. And Keir Starmer, they're all after you. They're all after you, and they have been. Now, why did you get in? Well, because we didn't want conservatives anymore, because conservatives have proven themselves, unfortunately, very untrustworthy. So now people are looking to Nigel Farage and Reform UK as the savior, as the light at the end of the tunnel. The problem that I have with Farage, and I got to be very careful what I say here because I don't want to contradict myself. I am fully behind Reform UK. I have to. I want to see this country reform. I want to see something being done with immigration. I want to see something being done with the taxes. I want to see something done with the business allowances. I want to see a lot of things. I want to see the moral and ethical and values coming back into this country. I want to see young children stopping being manipulated and sexually abused and sexually groomed by by teachers, by schools, by officials, by governmental practices. And that's what's happening here and in Canada, and what was happening in the US, probably still is until Donald Trump takes over. But the concern that I have, and I've said this so many times in passing conversations this past week, is I hope, Nigel Farage, you better, if you get into office, you better be as good as your word, because we're putting our trust in you, we're putting our faith in you. And this country, Britain, Great Britain, cannot afford to have another person manipulate them, move them, get all their hopes up, and then bang, have it all crashing down, like Starmer's done, like Rishi Sunak has done, and so many others. Folks, here's the crazy thing. Looking at it from a psychological point of view, we said, when you're despondent, when you're desperate, when you're tired of life, a lot of this happens because you are oppressed and you are attacked violently by the system. And if you actually look at everything that our British government has their hands on, i.e. the police, i.e. the schools, i.e. the health and medical care are trying their absolute best. I have no doubt about that. Police, there's a lot of corruption there, but there always has been. It was founded and funded on corruption back in the days of Robert Peel, the Bow Street Runners, when the police were originally formed. They formed the police with thugs and violent criminals because at the end of the day, they're the best ones to catch violent criminals. Rat catch rats, as they used to say. When you look at all the other things, the school systems that's there, the taxes that we're being asked to pay, that the money isn't going into the schooling system, isn't going into all these things. I don't know where it's going, but how on earth can a country that's literally sitting there giving as much money away in taxes as it is be on the brink of bankruptcy again? Oh, wait, we're there because guess what? All our money and all our tax dollars and pounds are being sent abroad, which that needs to stop for a start. And secondly, they're being put into things like MPs' back pockets. When you've got MPs that are being paid 80, 90,000 a year, sorry, you don't need to be there. And you saw how many people were there. It is something so frustrating. It is no wonder why major businesses do not want to do trade and business with the United Kingdom anymore. It is no wonder why the United Kingdom is sitting there saying, what do we do here? Because we've got no one to do anything with. We can't progress because we've screwed this up for ourselves. Things have to change. If human beings are going to survive, this has to change. If it doesn't change, then we are going to be in a major, major problem. Something else that's going on that Nigel Farage, I hope, is going to be looking at doing away with is this stupid cancel culture, first and foremost. But secondly, arresting people because of freedom of expression, freedom of view, freedom. Now, there has to be lines, there has to be limits, of course, but why does it matter to somebody else in a certain culture, in a certain environment, what I think? Why should it matter at all whether I agree with you or not? It doesn't. And the problem is, this is why people get despondent and dissatisfied and tired of life, is because when the government takes and squeezes you to that point of insanity, you get to the point where you're just like, I physically can't go up anymore. And this is what's happened when these old folks who were promised to have their winter fuel payment returned to them. It's criminal what Starmer has done. And for him to say 2 weeks ago, if you don't like it, there's the door, basically off. I think, well, you're not actually serving the people at all. You don't care about the people, quite clearly. And you shouldn't be in the role, good sir, Mr. Keir Starmer. You shouldn't be there. You should never have been there. And how you got there is beyond me. But here's the thing. Let's go a little bit further, shall we, to a psychological analysis. What happens when people have been attacked and oppressed and tyrannized by the tyrannical, narcissistic emperors that have existed historically? Well, if you look back to the Victorian times, what happened? What happened to the children who were oppressed? What happened to the workers who were oppressed? They eventually said no more. And they formed unions. Workers formed unions so that the business people couldn't just, maybe we need to form a Britain's union that the government can't actually, get involved with anymore. But there's something more to this. As a psychologist in training, I'm looking at all the time how people respond in given circumstances and events. And when you explore the character of the Joker, for example, in the DC world, the cartoon character, you remember Batman and Robin for, those a little bit older. But when you explore the character of the Joker and his real story, you begin to understand what happens when someone is really triggered, when someone is really despondent with life, when someone's really disgusted with life. You begin to understand why they behave the way that they do. And you begin to understand the lengths that they'll be willing to go to get what they want. So in the DC world, it's had many sort of stories, many sort of origin stories of the Joker. But the one that I like the most, we did a show on this back in August, I think it was 2022. And it was exploring from a psychological point of view the character of the Joker. And more so exploring it from the point of view of the one of the latest cartoons at that point. I'm just going to show you a clip. Now, in this clip, the Joker had been married, he'd had a child, or his wife was pregnant, and he was going after his dream. I mean, he really wanted to go after it, but he'd had a father who was always at him, really negative, really attacking him, really abusing him, always putting him down, a mother that was never really that encouraging either. And he gets back home one day after being told, sorry, kid, you're no good. You're never going to be any good. Get out. His dream's dashed. And he's an emotional wreck. He's an emotional wreck already by this point. But he gets home to find that somebody's broken into his home and murdered his wife and unborn child. Now, we've talked about this before, that it takes a small amount regularly to overflow a bathtub. And that a human being's life can be disrupted and destroyed very, very quickly. And it's a really emotional story. If you haven't seen it, I do encourage you to watch it. It is graphic, but I encourage you to watch it. But from a psychological, analytical point of view, it is fascinating to see what happens to this guy who was a really sweet, emotional guy. And then this happens to him. So check this out. He's had his first encounter with Batman here. Batman thinks he's that guy. Now, unfortunately, we didn't see there, because the edit that I had from it, that basically his eyes glow red. He becomes manic. He becomes insane. He becomes crazed lunatic. And that's what happens when someone has enough attacks on them, enough batterings, enough harm, enough poundings, enough smacking, enough bashing, enough attacks, you know, all of the above. When someone has enough and their brain just snaps and they literally get to the point, it's like, sod this, sod you, God, sod you people, sod you the world. You know, I'm coming after you. I'm going to take what I want. And that's what happens. And the Joker, if you watch all of the other things and you sort of combine them, you pull from different strands and look at him from a psychological point of view, you start to see and understand why he is the way he is. Remember, no one ever just starts out bad. No one's ever all good. No one's ever all bad. But then the Joker, as you learn, has the power to influence people, which is what he does to Harlequin and all these other, bad guys, if you were. And one of the things you find as an author that's really always interested me is no matter which side of the coin you're on, it is important to write the characters as if they are 100% in the full fundamental belief that they are right. So the Joker believes absolutely that Bruce Wayne is the bad guy. He believes that Robin is a deluded idiot. He believes that anybody that opposes his view for a new world, for a new smile, for an entertainment, you know, of taking what you want and doing what you need to do, he believes that anybody that stands against that is the enemy. And that is what a psychopath will do. It's what a sociopath will do. So whenever you're writing characters, you always want to be writing them from the perspective of, I know I'm doing right. I know I'm doing right. Now, this links back into what we were saying earlier on about Keir Starmer and about his running of the government or lack thereof, because when people have been oppressed so much, you saw this with, I believe, Tommy Robinson, who's disappeared off the map. As far as I'm aware, he was the guy in the UK that was leading a lot of reform, and he was basically going out in the streets and saying, no, we need something happen. And that's why people started getting arrested. That's why he was arrested in several situations and he had to flee. And you look at this over and over and over again, and it's like, it's the exact same thing happening. And the danger with people who don't learn from history is they're doomed to repeat it. We're going to talk about that and so much more when we return from commercial break, so don't go away. So this is the photo my client sent to me. This is me painting said photo, and this is the final finished result. Well, howdy there, friends. I am excited to share with you our brand new Highland Cow custom portrait. I can't exactly call this a pet portrait, but it's a custom portrait. And I am delighted to share it with you. 16 by 20, black frame, as you can see, all ready to hang. And there we go. We are back. I hope you enjoyed seeing that little snippet for what it was worth. We tried to cobble something together in the time that we had, but it was so much fun that we wanted to share it with you before we went to the Christmas break. The Highland Cow painting is so special to me. And if you're interested in ordering your very own for 2025, do get in touch with us at thejohnmorris.co.uk. Well spaces are available and well supplies last for prints and for other merchandise as well. We are back, and we have been talking in the past sort of 20 minutes or so about being despondent, being desperate and tired of life. And we've been looking at the Joker. We've been looking at the way that Keir Starmer has been running the country. And we want to take things a little bit further, because we've also been talking about what happens when you have too much oppression on a society. And the Tao Te Ching talks about this. You know, when people are too oppressed, they become angry, they become violent, they become desperate. Leave the people alone. Those are the exact words from Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. In the book of the Bible, now you may be saying, how the heck does this line up? You know, John, we saw the title. It was the Starmer, the Job, or the Job, and the Joker, like the line, The Witch in the Wardrobe. How on earth does that all tie up? Well, you're going to see momentarily what happens when someone is oppressed and played games with to the nth degree, and what the Bible has to say about this. This is from Jordan Peterson. Check it out. We'll see you in a moment.
This is what Job figures out in the midst of his suffering in the book of Job, because Job is tortured terribly by God, who makes a bet with Satan himself to bring him down. And Job's decision in the face of his intense suffering is, I'm not going to lose faith in my essential goodness, And I'm not going to lose faith in the essential goodness of being itself, regardless of how terrible the face it's showing to me at the moment happens to be. I think, okay, what do you make of that claim? Well, let's look at it practically. You're being tortured by the arbitrariness of life. That's horrible. Now you lose faith in yourself and you become cynical about being. So, are you infinitely worse off instantly? And then you might say, well, yeah, but it's really asking a lot of people that they maintain faith even in their darkest hours. It's like, yeah, that might be asking everything from people.
Providing us with that clip, because it is very, very interesting from the point of view of Job. And the reason that we brought that up is because now I've been doing a lot of comparing and contrasting with university work recently, and we were looking at top-down and bottom-up approaches to community psychology. That's a whole nother topic I'll get onto maybe at some point in the future if you've ever any interest in it. But the reason that I sort of lie all these together is because when you look at the book of Job and you look at it again for what it is and on the basis of what it is, you see that, as Jordan Peterson said, God made a bet with the devil. God essentially was playing craps and Russian roulette with the devil. He rolled the dice and said, devil, Job is going to be so faithful and so loyal to me. I can do anything to him and he won't turn his back on me. And the devil says, well, Mr. God, prove it. Now, bear in mind, everything's divine. Even the stuff that we don't like, everything is divine. And the devil says, well, prove it, Mr. God. Show me that Job isn't going to, just denounce you and whatever when things get really tough. So, God says multiple things and does multiple things. And again, in no specific order, but just to give you the facts, Job essentially has a whirlwind that comes and destroys his land. His family leave. His wife basically turns around and says, you know what? Why don't you just curse God and die? He has a plague of boils. Plague of boils that comes all over him. But imagine boils all over yourself. Imagine the pain that you've been from head to foot. You can't stand, you can't sit. It's roasting hot outside. He's miserable. And eventually he gets to a point. And I've wrestled around with this as a theologian for many, many years. But he gets to a point where he says, God, how could you do this? I'm paraphrasing. And God turns around and says, who are you to question the mind of the Almighty? Now, as Jordan Peterson said, you do not lose faith in goodness, faith in yourself. You don't want to become cynical. There's a lot of people that would hear the voice of God and said, oh, well, who am I? This tiny little wretch to question the voice of the Almighty. But I think in the Joker's case, if he was Job, he would turn around and say, well, God, what the? Fill in the blank. What the? I've had to go through all of this suffering, all this pain, all of this. Yes, great. In the end, everything works out for Job and he gets everything restored back to him, his family, his fortune, tenfold and everything. But the enormity, the amount of suffering, the pain that he has to go through is unbelievable. Now, Job was a very, very unique character. If you go by what the Bible says, and the reason that Job was very, very unique was because he didn't curse God, because he didn't turn around and say, well, Lord, stuff you. He kept on going. He showed great resilience and great perseverance. That was the mind of Job that God knew. That was the ace up God's sleeve that he knew. But you see that happen with the Joker. You see the Joker lose his dream. His family didn't support him. He ends up losing his wife and he ends up losing his unborn child, and horrors upon horrors upon horrors happen. And people will turn around and say, well, why didn't the Joker just behave like Job? Because Job is not the Joker and the Joker is not Job. And that was not his path to tread. And this is, in Job's time, it was real life. In our time, it's real life. Why don't we just behave like Job? hopefully haven't got a plague of boils over us and suffering and horror and torture in that way. But we perhaps have it in a very, very different way. Perhaps your suffering, your thorn in the flesh, is that you can't put your heating on. Perhaps you're sitting there in a freezing cold house. Perhaps you work every hour that God sends, only to give it all away to the tax man, only to be, or to feel like you're hard done by. And perhaps you're sitting there. Each individual's relationship with God is going to be very, very, very different. And the darker our society gets, and the further away that it gets from core values and morals and ethics, the worse that this is going to become. It's very difficult when you are going through horrors and struggles and really hard times not to become cynical, not to hate the world, not to become angry with absolutely everybody. It's very difficult to have and continue to have faith in the goodness of other people, especially if you've been left by yourself, especially if you haven't got a faith. In no way, shape, or form do we see a relationship with God with the Joker. He was never a churchgoer as far as I was aware. He never sat there singing hallelujah choruses. He was just an ordinary, everyday person. So he didn't have a faith necessarily to fall back onto. And when you've had everything else taken away from you, your church has gone, your friends have gone, your family have gone, your livelihood has gone, your business has gone, the way to make money has gone. It is really difficult. Take it from someone who's experienced it several times. It is really difficult then to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to pick myself up by my bootstraps and I'm going to keep on going. And you will only ever have one decision to make. Are you going to continue? Are you not going to continue? Are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? And you will learn in that moment of struggle and desperation and trial and suffering and bull caca what it really means to be resilient. And we as a nation here in the United Kingdom, United States, you can speak to this as well, because you're learning very, very much what it means to be resilient in these times. In 2024, going into 2025, you are learning, we're all learning what it means to be ultimately resilient, what it means to take back our own control and say, right, if it's going to cost £1,300 per year to heat and light our building, $1,700 approximately, 2,500 Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand dollars, then you got to start looking at it from the point of view of, well, perhaps I need to find ways that I can heat the house inefficiently, or efficiently, one or the other, inexpensively. Perhaps I need to look at ways to cut costs. Perhaps I need to look at ways of making more money. Perhaps I need to do this. Perhaps I need to start becoming more creative, because in these desperate times, as we've seen in the 1929, when the World Trade Center collapsed, we saw people miles and miles wide in the United States that would queue outside looking desperately, desperately for jobs every single day. They were desperate for jobs, but there was a few that turned around and said, how can I be resilient here? How can I provide phenomenal service to businesses? How can I provide phenomenal service to an organization who is already struggling? And that's what we need to be looking at doing here. Fine, Starmer has cocked up the country. Governmental officials seem to be great with it. Liz Truss was the last one that was particularly despicable. Rishi Sunak was another one who was particularly despicable. Boris Johnson came along, did a lot of stupid things. Well, it's been a long time since we've had a good prime minister that has done anything good for the country. And that is what we're needing. We're needing someone who's going to come in, who is going to really have the people's best interests at heart. Because Mr. Farage, Mr. Starmer, all of you sitting down there in Westminster, you need to know there are a lot of people out there like Jobs that'll sit there, that'll suffer, that'll do what they need to do. They'll sit and praise the Lord at the end of the day. But there's also becoming a lot of people like the jokers out there who are sick and tired of being oppressed, sick and tired of being attacked, sick and tired of being made to feel vulnerable, sick and tired of being essentially beaten down by the tyrannical, narcissistic lunatics that are running our countries, that are flooding our governments. Sick and tired of going to work every single day only to have nothing to show for it, just to keep you guys warm. They're sick and tired of it. And there's a lot of people out there. If you remember back to 2010, the BlackBerry riots that happened, there wasn't enough police. There wasn't enough police in the country to actually deal and stop those riots. What do you think would happen if all of Scotland, all of England, all of Wales, sorry, Northern Ireland as well, but certainly the connected parts, all came and showed upon your doorstep and said, because of you, my father died of the cold. My mother died of the cold. Is this some sort of great plan? Is this some sort of manipulated thing? I would love to be able to have finished this year on a real high note, because there is a lot to celebrate. There is a lot to talk about. There is a lot to be delighted about. We have had a lot of health struggles this year. We really have, but I'm still here. I've still got a voice, and I'm back on the air for whatever reason and for how long it may last. We've had also a lot of personal growth, and 2025 is going to be no exception. It is going to be a year of exponential growth, because already we have verbal agreements with some seriously big names to partner together involving brand new podcasts that are going to be taking place stateside. So there's going to be a lot of things to really, really be excited about. I can't share any more details with you other than that right now, but it is going to be phenomenal. But it's great for me. Wonderful. John's, and I'm sure a lot of you, knowing my background, knowing where I came from 5-10 years ago, I'm sure a lot of you are delighted and happy. You'll also be happy to know that my wife and I, on the basis of things going forward, are looking to do something to help people in need. Now, whether that's setting up foundations, whether or not that's setting up, whatever. I mean, there's food banks out there. It's not tackling the problem. The problem is often in the leadership. The problem is also in how you guys are spending your time and your life. You need to be investing in yourself. You need to be educating yourself. You need to be developing. You say, well, John, I work 9 to 5. I work 9 to 5. I come home. I've maybe got some time with the kids. You're really, really tired. Great. You could listen to an audiobook. Rather than sitting there watching EastEnders and other crappy TV, you could start filling other crappy TV with energy that is designed basically on the basis to be the lowest denominator possible. It is not going to inspire you. It's not going to educate you. It's not going to fulfill you. You need to start taking action in your own life. Decide what you want to be. Because, folks, I got to tell you, I learned today, and it was mathematically done, that kids spend 14,000 hours of their lives inside of school. That's 14,000 hours you are going to lose between the time they start school and the time they finish. Guess what? You're going to spend 80,000 hours of your life in work. That's 94,000 hours that basically you're just giving away to somebody else. If you don't do something to take control of your own life, to grow your own life, to develop your own life, you are just going to be subservient every single day to the masses, to other people, to the government. Start betting on yourself. Start doing something for yourself. If you need help getting from where you are to where you want to be, reach out to us. Let's stick up an ad, shall we? Let's put something on and talk over it. If you need help getting from where you are to where you want to be, we can absolutely help you get there. What we do is, it's very, very simple. We listen to what you have to say, and then we respond, we give feedback, and then we help you get from where you are to where you want to be, helping you fill in the blanks. And it's so simple when you know how to do what you need to do to get from where you are to where you want to be. it's going to be life-changing for you. We're taking on a small number of clients for 2025, limited only to 10, because that's all space that I'm literally going to have, and we can help you get from where you are to where you want to be. If you are committed, if you are focused, and if you are really serious about making 2025 the year of change for you and for the people around. Folks, that's really all I've got to say today. I hope this has been beneficial. To conclude, and again, to wrap up, when people are oppressed, when people are marginalized, when people are attacked by the tyrannical, psychopathical, narcissistic lunatics, fill in all the other words that exist out there, they're either going to do one of two things. They're either going to roll over and take it, or they're going to do what the Joker did. And they're going to start fighting back, and they're going to start attacking, and that's when wars start happening, and all peace flies out the window, and all martial law and everything else. This has to be solved now. Farage, you're doing a great job. I pray that you will be a genuine person who really backs up what they say they're going to do. I really do. Regards to Starmer, you've already proven yourself unworthy to sit in the place that you are, to sit in the place of privilege that you are. That's all I've got to say, folks. Thank you so much for watching. It has been a pleasure being your host of the Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, whether we're talking about things with politics, whether we're talking about spiritual matters, whether we are talking about psychology, mental health, and all the other things that go about it. I love the variety that I get with this show. It is a delight. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, because it's going to be the very thing they need to hear in the hour of their struggle. And until next time, take care. God bless. We will see you in 2025. Who knows what that's going to bring, and who knows what that's going to look like. But I'm excited. We've got a lot of things going on. And as soon as we're able to share any news with regards to stuff for the future, we will absolutely be on. But do stay tuned, because it's well worth the journey and the excitement. And remember this, no matter what's happening in your life right now, everything is divine. Even the stuff that you think shouldn't be happening, everything is divine. And it is a phenomenal story that's being written. It's a phenomenal story that's been played out right before your very eyes. And there's always something much bigger than you going on at that time. Folks, I'm seeing people now jumping on. We are going to the after show. If you do want to ask questions about either British politics, if you want to ask questions about anything that we've been discussing in today's show, please do feel free. Other than that, I will catch you, and I'll try and catch you all on the other side. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Take care, God bless, and we'll see you in the new year. Take care.
Welcome to the Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. The show that not only dives deep into real-world issues, but also brings it closer to home, helping you master the internal world of your mind and the external world of your home and environment. This is a show you can't afford to miss. So, welcome one, welcome all to Mind, Body, and Soul with your host, Scottish artist, author, and mental health mentor, John Morris.